Welcome to this explainer. Every single day in a care facility, you're performing a kind of quiet heroism. The daily routines you follow, the gentle care you provide, it all forms this incredibly powerful, invisible shield. And this shield is literally the absolute first line of defense, protecting our vulnerable elderly residents from some pretty serious harm. So today we're going to dive into exactly how you maintain that shield against infections and food poisoning.
So, let me ask you this. Have you ever had food poisoning? Or maybe a really nasty viral infection? Take a second to think about that. Most of us probably have, right? It's really not a rare experience. Pathogens are these invisible threats that literally anyone can encounter. But here's the catch. What might just be a miserable, weekend in bed for a healthy adult can quickly become a life-threatening crisis for the elderly residents in your care. Managing these invisible threats day in and day out is the absolute core of what we do.
Okay, here is our roadmap for today. We'll look at the invisible enemy, breaking the chain, the shield of basic actions, elderly vulnerability in food poisoning, the 3 principles of defense, and finally, how daily basics protect lives. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The invisible enemy. Knowing the exact pathogens we face.
We are up against a really wide variety of microscopic threats. We've got viral infections like influenza, COVID-19, and norovirus. Then there are bacterial ones, like pneumococcus, which is a major cause of pneumonia. We also see fungal infections, like candida, which often pops up in the mouth or on the skin, and of course, athlete's foot. And finally, parasitic infections like scabies, which are caused by tiny mites transferring through skin-to-skin contact. Those can actually range from a normal type to a really severe Norwegian type that requires a lot of extra care. And just to put pathogen danger into perspective globally, it's actually the dengue virus carried by mosquitoes that kills the most humans worldwide. So yeah, these microscopic enemies are incredibly diverse and they require our diligent, gentle protection.
Moving on to Section 2. Breaking the chain. How infections actually spread.
Now, for an infection to really take hold, 3 specific things have to be in place. First, you need the pathogen itself. That's your source. Second, the route of infection, which is just how it travels from one place to another. And third, the host, which in our case is the vulnerable resident. But here is the good news. We don't need to defeat every single pathogen in the world to win. We simply need to break just one link in this chain. And the easiest, most effective link to smash, the route of infection. If we block its path, the infection simply cannot happen.
So, in a care facility, breaking that route really comes down to a few core non-negotiable rules. First up, don't bring it in. Since staff members are often the ones unknowingly carrying pathogens from the outside world, rigorous hand washing and gargling are absolutely essential to stop the threat right at the front door. Second rule, don't bring it out. When caring for residents, we have to use what are called standard precautions to ensure pathogens don't leave the room with us. And there's a vital third rule to remember too. Don't spread it. This means isolating sick individuals right away and having strict systems in place that prevent ill staff from even coming to work.
All right, Section 3. The shield of basic actions. Let's look closer at standard precautions and hand hygiene. First, we really need to clearly define what standard precautions actually are. Basically, this means treating all human bodily fluids, excretions, and blood, with the sole exception of sweat, as if they are highly infectious sources. And this applies regardless of whether the person seems perfectly healthy. Think of it kind of like carrying an umbrella every single day. You carry it just in case a sudden, unexpected downpour of infectious bodily fluids occurs. You've just got to always be prepared.
In practice, being prepared means wearing gloves whenever you handle blood, bodily fluids, or excrement. But it definitely goes further than that. If there's any risk of fluid splashing, say you're cleaning up vomit from a norovirus case or dealing with droplet infections like the flu, you have to elevate your protective gear. Bring out the masks, the goggles, the aprons. Always discard any needles safely in those designated boxes. And here is a seemingly simple but absolutely critical rule. Never, ever wear your mask under your nose while you're on the floor. It literally defeats the entire purpose of the shield.
Of course, personal protective equipment is only half the battle, right? Hand hygiene is your true frontline defense against bringing pathogens in. So let's quickly walk through the exact steps of proper soap hand washing. First, you've got to lather the soap extremely well. Second, carefully and thoroughly scrub between your fingers and the base of your thumbs. People always miss those spots. Third, wash your wrists thoroughly. And finally, rinse and dry your hands completely. I can't stress this enough. Damp hands are literally a playground for bacteria, so thorough drying is just as important as the washing itself.
Now,
When it comes to alcohol sanitizer, there is a super common mistake we see all the time: using way too little. A tiny little drop does absolutely nothing. You must push the pump down fully, one solid, complete push. Take that volume of liquid and rub it into your fingertips first, then spread it all over your entire hands and wrists. And this final step is mandatory for true sanitization. You have to rub it in thoroughly until your hands are entirely dry. Only then is the pathogen completely neutralized.
Section 4, Elderly Vulnerability and Food Poisoning. Let's talk about why the stakes are just so incredibly high here.
As we know, our elderly residents naturally face declining immunity, waning physical strength, and often have underlying illnesses. Because of this reality, what might just cause a minor stomachache in a staff member can so easily lead to severe, life-threatening complications for a resident. Your gentle, constant awareness of this exact fact is what prevents those fatal outcomes. Let's break down some specific food poisoning threats. For bacteria, the big ones are Campylobacter and Salmonella, which you'll often find in raw eggs and meat. For viruses, norovirus and hepatitis A and E are huge risks, especially in winter bivalves like oysters. And a crucial note here: oysters that are sold for heating must be thoroughly cooked. Never serve or eat those raw. Then we have parasites like anisakis found in raw fish. This one is brutal. It actually bites the stomach lining and causes severe pain. But thankfully, proper freezing and heating completely neutralize parasites and bacteria. Finally, we have to watch out for chemical and natural toxins, like histamine buildup in older mackerel or the natural poisons found in pufferfish and certain mushrooms.
Moving on to Section 5, the 3 principles of defense, stopping food poisoning right in its tracks. So these are the absolute golden rules of food safety. Think of this as your ultimate checklist in the kitchen and during care. Number 1, don't attach. Use strict hygiene to make sure bacteria simply doesn't get onto the food in the first place. Number 2, don't multiply. If a tiny amount of bacteria is already there, do not let it grow. You've got to use proper temperature control and never ever leave food sitting out at room temperature. And number 3, destroy. Heat or freeze the food properly to completely kill off the pathogens. Don't attach, don't multiply, and destroy the threat. Simple, but incredibly effective.
And our final section, Section 6, Daily Basics Protect Lives. How we respond to outbreaks as a team.
Look, even with the absolute best invisible shield in the world, a pathogen might eventually slip through. It happens. But when it does, how the team responds dictates whether it's just a minor hiccup or a massive facility-wide outbreak. If an outbreak is even suspected, your response has to be totally unified. Isolate the affected individuals immediately, enforce strict zoning to clearly separate the clean areas from the contaminated ones, and above all else, follow the official nursing manuals and the directives from the medical staff to the letter. Never, under any circumstances, act on your own personal judgment or guesswork in that moment. Stopping the spread relies completely on strict collective teamwork.
Executing the obvious with certainty protects the residents' lives. Washing your hands thoroughly, using that full pump of alcohol sanitizer, wearing your mask properly over your nose, enforcing those temperature controls. I know these might seem like really mundane, repetitive tasks, but when you stack them together day after day, they cease to be basic. They become a powerful shield. Your gentle, daily actions are quite literally the ultimate defense for the vulnerable people who rely on you. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final question to think about. Is your invisible shield as strong as it can possibly be today?